Hi, welcome to Good Job Mom. Today we are on to part 2 with Anita. Any questions that you may have, go ahead and drop them below or send me a message. You can also contact Anita. I'm going to have all of her information in the description box.
What is the best way to discipline our children? And when I say that, I mean, should we take it easy on them during this COVID-19 experience, or do we keep those same standards that we had before and the same routines basically from before?
Right. So, of course, discipline is completely up to the parents. I would highly suggest not hitting your kids
Mhm.
because I feel like when parents hit their children, it's more so I'm angry. My anger is now being transferred onto you, or I need a way to, discharge this anger, and I'm now harming you, and it teaches them to, harm.
Okay.
So I don't promote that. But it's okay to get angry and to change your tone when you're speaking to your kids and being a little more direct and firm because as you know, kids need boundaries and limits.
Yeah.
But because we are going through this collective trauma, I think it's important to have more compassion and understanding because these children are really experiencing a loss that's not tangible. No matter how much you explain it to them, they're still feeling it. So it's just important to have more compassion, to validate and affirm.
Okay.
Um, as hard as it is, as angry as parents can get. I do not have children, so I do not know. It's so easy for me to say this because I haven't experienced it, and I see in my sessions sometimes how hard it is to set boundaries and limits.
Yeah.
It's COVID, and it's really changed all our words. So.
It really is so hard, even before COVID. But, and I will say this, because a lot of parents hear, oh, you don't have kids, like, you don't know what you're talking about. You have been, and I mentioned this already though, without kids,
Mhm.
everything that you have suggested to try has 100% worked on our end with AJ. We'll be sending you a check at some point. How can we keep open dialogue between our children and ourselves?
Just being honest with your children. I do not believe in lying to kids and hiding things from them because as I stated, you want to be in control of the narrative. They're already feeling these things and you just want to be on top of it or be the one to deliver things. So I suggest that you check in with kids not only when you see a change in their behavior, but just gradual check-ins, like how are you feeling today? Just when they have feelings about different things that are happening, whether it's in play or not, asking them about it and just talking to them.
What are some ways we can tackle the anxiety that kids and parents will feel when re-entering into the world? And I think you kind of already touched base on that, having the conversation, but
definitely having the conversation, but also breathing activities. Breath work is so important for both the parent. It gives you a chance to recharge and, get in touch with your body because when you're not grounded, the kids can sense that and things change. Breathing activities, you can do yoga with your children. Just going to plug in there that I can do privates.
Plug away because you're in New York, but you are doing things through Zoom.
I am.
No matter where these viewers are, they can hit you up and contact you for. Now you do one-on-ones or you do groups?
I do one-on-ones and I do groups as well.
On to race and racism and navigating that. Whew, child. So this is great to talk to you about because you are a therapist and whose brain is better to pick than someone who already deals with people's emotions. And this is definitely an emotional roller coaster for adults and definitely you know this already, but to kind of say it to the viewers, AJ experienced, a racist comment last year. And we had always talked about his beautiful brown skin and his beautiful curly hair and, daddy is black and mommy is white. And always that open conversation of how brown skin is beautiful. Always, always, always. Mm-hmm. However, when this was said to him, it really took him, all of us, for a whirlwind, right? But it took him for a whirlwind, and there was a lot of emotional cleanup. And I'm happy to say, like, a year later, he's doing so much better. But I know personally, it happened to him when he was 4. If I could go back, we would have had the racism talk when he was 4. Is that a good idea? Emotionally, for kids?
For sure. So I believe that parents should begin these conversations, as early as 2.
Now, 2 years old, like, talking about race.
I would stick to, you have these features, you have this hair, you have this skin color, you are, such and such race, affirming. So I'm going to start with some statistics, because some people may or may not have seen it via the Conscious Kids Instagram.
Okay.
So from 0 to 1 birth, babies look at the faces of all races. At 3 months, they look at the faces that match the race of their caregivers.
Okay.
At 2, children as young as 2 use race to reason about people's behaviors. At 2.5, children use race to choose playmates. From 4 to 5 years old, around that age group, expressions of racial prejudice, they peak.
Wow.
I.e., what happened with AJ.
Oh my gosh, that's insane.
Yeah. At 5 years old, Black and Latinx children, they show no preference towards their own groups, but as compared to white children, they're more likely to be strongly biased in favor of whiteness. And of course, by kindergarten, children show many of the same racial attitudes held by adults in their own culture. They have learned to associate with some groups with higher statuses than others. So I say that to say, like, it's happening, whether the kids are verbalizing it or not, from 0 to 5. And I think that it's important to get ahead of the narrative, especially if you're moving, or if you live in a neighborhood, or a kid is attending school, or their classroom is full of kids that don't look like them. You want to give them that pep talk.
Wow.
Also, to be very transparent, this is something that, like, I've been in this field for 3 years, and this is something that is now, coming up more than ever. So I am also learning how to help parents, and doing my own research and work on how to have these conversations with kids that are so tiny.
Obviously, because Black children experience, or can experience, racism as early as, like, AJ 4. It's necessary to have that talk about racism to kind of just prepare them emotionally. But what about non-Black children? Should they be having that talk of what racism is?
For sure. As
young?
Yeah. I think, and it speaks to one of the questions you said about, like, how to help kids be an ally, or how to, I think that was one of them. But you can start by explaining to kids that are non-Black, racism is believing that someone is good if they look a certain way, skin color, hair texture, shape of their eyes, nose, mouth, sound a certain way, their names, their voices, their language. We live in a world where everyone is not treated equally based on their skin color, but we are all equal, especially in God's eyes. You should start by, like, laying it on the table, like it's there, especially now if they are hearing about riots and watching their parents watch the news. I think it's important to have these conversations no matter what race you are. And there are books out there for kids that discuss white supremacy, that discuss what it's like, the experiences of different races and the injustices that the kids face. There are stories about that.
And so you think that kids are emotionally mature enough to handle that if we guide them along that path?
Basic terms. Personally, I believe, like, you lay it out there, but also give them hope. The world is changing. People are speaking up. Like, things are happening so that the world will not be this way. Once again, mommy and daddy, we're doing our best to keep you safe, although that this is the belief of the world. And know that you are strong, you can do anything, you are equal. You are just as smart as anyone else, no matter what you look like.
Then for non-Black children, non-Black and brown children, like what can we say to those kids?
Because you are of this skin color, as a non-Black child, the world is going to treat you differently and give you privileges and allow you to do things that they won't let other people do. But just know that everyone is entitled to these things and they should be given the same opportunities. You are special, but everyone else, is special as well. Once again, have them read the same books. And learning history, like history in school, kindergarten or preschool history is a little different than when you get older. But I know a lot of things are left out in elementary, junior high school, and high school.
Right.
And making sure that they know about all parts of history in the most basic terms and that you're exposing them to different things. And I think that's the best way to approach that.
After discussing racism, how often should we check back in with our kids to see how they're processing it?
I think as often as they bring it up.
Okay.
So I think after you have the conversation, if you see that they're a little uneasy or they had some feelings, but maybe they're not ready to share, you can follow up and say, hey, we spoke about a lot of things that can make your body feel really uncomfortable. Is there anything that wasn't clear or any questions that you have? And then after that, I would let them bring it up.
Things that will make your body feel uncomfortable. That's a really good way for kids, I think, to understand, processing those emotions.
Yeah. Do you feel it in your stomach? Do you feel it in your head? Like when I told you that, where did you feel it? And just talk about it.
Check back in with them while they're processing, but how can we help them process it?
Again, that is something that I right now am preparing myself just in case it comes up, because it's relevant. I always give my clients a space, the parents a space to talk about it. I address what's happening. I know it's been a rough week. There's been this and that. Are there any feelings? So one of the activities, I'll give one art and one movement, helping children to see how they identify themselves. So you grab a mirror. You grab some art supplies, some crayons, markers, glue, scissors, whatever they might need. And you have them look at themselves. Just look at themselves. Kids love looking in the mirror. Affirm their features, including the things that make them unique. Maybe it's their hair. Maybe it's their shape of their eyes. Let them know that different families have special features that were passed on to them. You can even say, grandma has the same eyes as you. Or just let them know about different members of the family that have the same features as them. You want to give them little prompts. You can ask them the shape of their head, have them draw it, and repeat it until they've gone through their whole body and they've really looked at themselves and you see how they see themselves. And then you teach them to love themselves and love their features. Maybe play their favorite song to help them become empowered. And if they have feelings about anything that you did, or if anything comes up or they look uncomfortable or if they look angry or there's feelings of frustration, you acknowledge the feeling, validate it, empathize, and affirm. In terms of movement, so I am a big fan of mirroring and attunement, which is just tuning in and to your child's feelings and embodying the Zuri movements. You allow them to lead movement and you just follow them. Like, it gives children a sense of leadership, power over themselves, power over their movements. And once again, you can look in the mirror with your child, practice affirmations. I am beautiful, I'm strong, I am loved, I can do anything, I'm confident. And you can have children create movements based on these different affirmations. What does I'm strong look like? Does it look like this? Mm-hmm. Does it look like this?
Okay, muscle, I saw that too.
You have them create their own movements or encourage them to create what those feelings look like for them. Yes. I would come up with maybe 6 or 7 and have them repeat it and come up with movements.
I don't know. AJ usually draws himself brown, but
Mhm.
there's been a couple occasions. I mean, one time he like just drew like a circle for his head and left the paper white, and I was like, "Hey, um, why didn't you color it brown this
Mm.
time around?" And I didn't know if I was asking the question the right way. And, we're kind of on super high alert because of what has happened over the year. He answered with, "Oh, I had to draw, I wanted to draw eyes or whatever on my face. It doesn't really show up when I, color it brown, and I have to use a black crayon to color on the brown
Mhm.
part to do that, and I wanted to use a different color." I was like, "Okay, cool." Right? Like that made sense. I was like, "Fine." But like, did I ask that question the right way? How, like, what do we do if a parent, you know, sees their kid draw themselves and it doesn't look like them? Like, do we address that? How do we address that?
Non-judgmental questions. Just ask them. Like, I love the colors that you use. I see that you use big circles for the eyes. Can you tell me more about that? Or I see that you colored it with this color. Can you tell me more about that? Like, just
Okay.
asking them to tell you more about their picture and not placing judgment on the way you think that it should have been depicted or their feature should have been depicted. Tell me a little more about that. Like, I'm really interested in that color that you use for the face. What made you choose that? I know it's hard. I know it's hard. You want to understand the thoughts behind it before you like go into action.
A lot of us parents are processing our own emotions in general, not just about race and racism, just our day to day with our relationships with people, our relationship with ourselves. And then something like this, non people of color, walk on eggshells about it, really, and, don't want to address it. So then we bring it to our kids and we're like, how do we do this?
It's like adults are processing it, and at the same time they're trying to help their children process it. It's complex.
Antoine's processing it as a Black man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm processing it as a white woman with Black children and a Black husband, and Black friends. So we're just trying to process it, and we both have our own individual, things to do, and it doesn't look the same for Antoine and I, at least. I'm attacking it in a different way than he is. And then we've had to walk our kid through it this past year, and that makes it even more emotional. And then he hears, like you said, these kids see everything. He overhears the videos, and he's seen the news, and he's seen the protests, and he's like, why are people protesting? And it's like, okay, well, we're not going to sugarcoat it. This is why they're protesting. Well, why did that happen? Okay. And then that's when it's like, all right, well, it's time to have the conversation, like the full conversation.
Yeah, it's difficult. If they already saw it, then you definitely have to address it. Or if you think they saw it, sometimes I feel like this is a lot. Like the content that we are viewing is a lot for kids to take in. So
100%.
it's probably best for them maybe not to see all of it and just to give it to them in doses.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay, so the next questions I have for you are actually from a viewer. Good job, Mom. Hey, shout out to them. How can a parent teach their child to be an ally?
A parent can teach their child how to be an ally by starting with history. The same way non-Black people are having to do the work and to do research and read and learn. I think it's important for the kids to be learning history and the knowledge about the foundation of the world that they live in, let alone the country that they live in. And knowledge is power. I know it's, natural to want to leave out the yucky parts, but I think that, parents should find a very basic way to explain the yucky parts and really end it with giving hope for the future.
Really quick, you said, put it in basic terms. I think emotionally we try to hide things, and not just about racism, but in general, maybe sexuality and
Yes.
And even like yucky, what we deem to be yucky feelings too, like anger and sadness. We kind of try to hide those things from our kids because we think the longer they can maybe be naive or young at heart, it's kind of keeping them safe.
Yeah.
As a therapist, do you think that it's keeping them safe to hide these things from them?
Once again, I believe in being very honest with children and just finding a very basic way to explain things to them. I think you're keeping kids safe by not having them see all the things that are happening on the television and the riots and the violence. Like, I think it's safe to shield them from that, but also just to let them know it's happening. Rather than them getting it from the TV, you are in control of it. It's giving them as much knowledge and history so that when they go out there, they are not treating, not to say that all kids do this, but so that, you know, you can prevent them treating others differently based on the color of their skin. You can indirectly do it by like prepping them by the conversations you have in your household so that when they now leave the home, they aren't walking in, you know, the path of white supremacy.
And some people may think that that's such a far off way or far off, I don't know, road to walk. It can maybe happen without us knowing if we don't discuss what has happened, if we don't discuss history, if we don't address it and say like, hey, this is wrong. Some people acted this way. Some people still act this way. Like you said, put it in very basic terms, make it super, super simple. You know, that's what we did with AJ. He had questions. Well, why? Why would people think this? I don't know. Who knows why they thought that? Right.
Exactly. And it's okay to let them know that you don't have all the answers right now.
That's good.
You can share facts that you think are necessary. You can set the tone. You can model calm, and you can, you know, model like the best way to like approach this. And it's a great way to like plug in your family's values and your morals.
I want to ask, how can we encourage our children to create boundaries with people?
Boundaries, like, can you give me a little more like context, or maybe give me like an example?
Okay, well, since we're talking about, I mean, in general, boundaries, I think is a great thing for our kids to learn. But I know specifically when I wrote this question, I was thinking about, you know, a child said something racist to AJ, it's gonna happen again. It's just is. How can, and I've told him to tell the child no, or whoever says it, no, you're wrong, and leave it at that, and then come tell someone he trusts, whether it's me or my husband or, you know, my sister, who is the person he told when it happened to him last year. But is that a good enough boundary for him to establish?
I was going to say, you, like, the parents have to teach, like, once again, they're looking at parents. So however you set boundaries and limits, they automatically learn how to do that. But I think it's great that you told him to say no and to go to someone that he trusts. I think that's a great way to set a boundary. I know I don't want to talk about this, or no, that's not, like, I don't feel like that's true. Yeah, saying no, that's a boundary in itself.
Yes.
And it's okay to say no. And it's okay to not, you know, accept that. So I think that you're teaching children, or you're teaching your child to say no so young. That's awesome.
Yes, we tell them to say no to other people, but they can't, like, they can't say no to us for some things.
Right. So I am your mom. I am your dad. And I am telling you this to keep you safe. I think that this is something that you need to do because I want you to be safe, whether it's physically safe, emotionally safe.
That's so good.
Yeah.
This was a question from someone who watches. So, white people have become paralyzed with fear when discussing race with other adults and their children. How can we snap out of that and have healthy conversations?
Oh, Doing it more, continuing to be uncomfortable, continuing to speak to different family members, different friends that still believe and walk in the path of white supremacy. Like, I feel like once you continue to have these uncomfortable conversations, and as you continue to learn more, read the books, watch the movies, like learn about the history and just surround yourself with it, and change your way of thinking, because you're actually retraining the brain.
From my experience, now granted, I grew up, you know, in a very, very diverse area, and my mom made it very clear that everyone deserves the same respect, et cetera, et cetera. Yes. So everyone deserves the same respect. We don't say the N-word in my house. No one is allowed to say that. This is where it stems from. That's why we don't use it. And my mom came with all of that. Yes. So I knew that right away. What I didn't know was, and that I learned, I want to say like 6 years ago, actually, was like white privilege. I didn't understand that. And I also didn't understand like microaggressions. You say retraining the mind or the brain, right? I, through reading and listening and just everything, have been able to, and granted, I had a pretty good foundation, but I've been able to reprogram where I can now pick up on, that's my privilege thinking that. That's my privilege that's doing that. Now I can pick up on microaggressions. Like, I was telling someone that who is going through this process of learning now. And I was like, I don't know how I'm able to see what I see now. But you saying that makes it's so much sense. Retraining the brain.
You're doing the work. You're actually prioritizing.
Yes.
The brain. So now it's in your view. You know, you've aligned yourself with this new way of thinking. So now you are able and open to seeing these different things.
That is so good.
Microaggressions, the privilege. You're seeing it. You're open. Now when you see it, you're like training your brain. That's that.
Right.
That's that. You know, and I feel like more of that needs to happen.
I think you putting it in these terms, people can like understand that. Prioritizing, training, and back to our kids. If we have the conversations now, we don't have to retrain anything. We can actually train their brains to see the truth.
You can just be and be in this new way, this new healthy way, and they can see it, because as I said before, kids mirror your behaviors. They learn from parents. So once you are doing the work and you change, the kids will already see it, and they're learning from you. So they're learning how to move in this world and navigate.
What's different from you is okay.
That is real.
Woo!
We both snapped at the same time.
And this is going to be my last question. Okay. How can we, or what are some benefits of incorporating arts and movement into our daily or weekly activities as a family?
Bonding. I'll say building healthy attachments and relationships with your children, verbally and non-verbally. Incorporating arts and movement helps with stress management and promoting relaxation. And just providing a safe and a fun way to express yourself. It won't always be fun, because once again, there are good feelings, there are yucky feelings, there are uncomfortable feelings, but just giving them a safe space to do that, whether it's drawing, whether it's having a dance party, whether it's freeze dancing, whether it's playing with pots and pans and making music and creating a song together. It gives you a chance to build rituals, which kids need.
Well, thank you. I feel like I have learned so much. And when I go back to edit this, I'm going to be taking notes so that I can remember and apply. But thank you for your time. I'm going to drop your information, in the description box. If anybody wants to reach out to you and hire you.
The way to get in contact with me is at Solace Steps. SOLACESTEPS on Instagram, and also the same at gmail.com.
And do you have any last thing that you would like to say to Good Job Mom viewers?
Just be patient with yourself, be patient with your children. Know that this is a collective trauma that we're all going through, COVID. However, injustices have, existed for years and years and years, hundreds of years. Be gentle with yourself as you're trying to process it, learn it, feel it, and also protect your kids and also educate them simultaneously. Practice self-care because we all need it. And that is all I have to say to the people of Good Job Moms.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.